The House will come to order. The pledge today will be led by Elena Sorkin, Elise Sorkin, Oscar Young, and Ashton Richardson from Denison Elementary School, Lakewood, Colorado.
Please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Caller, please call the roll.
Representatives Arndt. Becker J. Becker K. Brown. Buck. Buckner. Carver. Conti. Moro. Court. Danielson. Del Grosso. Dorr. Duran. Esgar. Everett. Fields. Representative Fields. Foote. Garnett. Janal. Hamner. Humphrey. Joshi. Kagan. Williamschmidt. Graf-Lark. Landgraf. Lawrence. Lepsock. Lee. Leonard. Representative Leonard.
Representative Leonard excused.
Monteith. Lundin. McCann. Representative Leonard and Representative Fields are present. Melton. Fitz Bush. Moreno. Representative Moreno. Navarro. Neville. Nordberg. Cabone.
Representative Cabone excused.
Henderson. Primavera. Representative Primavera. Riola. Rankin. Ransom. Rosenthal. Rupay. Bryden. Singh. Salazar. Sias. Singer. Thurlow. Tyler. Van Winkle. Behill. Willett. Williams. Wilson. Winhold. Winter. Grist. Young. Madam Speaker.
Thank you. 13th be dispensed with and approved as corrected by our chief clerk.
You've heard the motion that the journal be adopted as corrected by the chief clerk. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Motion carries. Members, may we have your attention, please? Please take your seats. We're moving into memorial. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for the immediate consideration of HM 1004.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed to consider HM 1004. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of HM 1004.
House Memorial 1004 by Representatives Priola and Primavera, memorializing former Representative William Bill Michael Behrens.
Representative Priola.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move HM 1004 and request that it be read at length.
Whereas, our respected former colleague, Bill Behrens, a past member of the Colorado House of Representatives, departed this life on September 7, 2015. And whereas Representative Behrens was born on December 9, 1948 in Montrose, Colorado, to William and Clementine Behrens. And whereas Representative Behrens graduated from Grand Junction Central High School, and after serving as an infantryman and drill sergeant in the Army, received a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from the University of Colorado Boulder and a Master of Business degree from the University of Northern Colorado. And whereas after moving to Broomfield, Colorado in 1975, Representative Behrens was elected to the Broomfield City Council in 1985, became Mayor Pro Tem in 1987, and in 1994 was elected mayor and served for 4 terms, becoming Broomfield's first mayor to be term limited in 2001. And whereas during Representative Behrens' time as mayor, an amendment to the Colorado Constitution creating the city and county of Broomfield was passed. A new water system and treatment facility were brought online to replace the system near Rocky Flats, and as a result of the combined city and county of Broomfield, residents' baseline property taxes were cut by 20%. And whereas Representative Behrens, acting as mayor of Broomfield, served as chair of the board for the Northwest Parkway Public Highway Authority, and was appointed by Governor Bill Owens to the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, the Broomfield Local Licensing Authority, the Broomfield Planning and Zoning Commission, and was a founding member of the U.S. 36 Mayors and County Commissions Coalition. And whereas Representative Behrens was elected to the United Power Board of Directors in 2009 and proudly served in that capacity until his passing. And whereas in 2004, Representative Behrens was elected as a state representative and served until 2006. And whereas during his time as a state representative, Representative Behrens served on the Health and Human Services Committee, the Local Government Committee, the Transportation and Energy Committee, the Capital Development Committee, the Police Officers and Firefighters Pension Reform Commission, and the Transportation Legislation Review Committee. And whereas Representative Behrens was well respected by colleagues on both sides of the aisle and will be remembered for his hard work and accomplishments. Now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 70th General Assembly of the State of Colorado that in the death of Bill Behrens, the people of the state of Colorado have lost a dedicated public servant and outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the House of Representatives of the 70th General Assembly, do hereby extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of his family and pay tribute to a man who served his state well and faithfully.
Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I first met Mayor Bill, as he was referred to in Broomfield when I first met him, when I was asked to run for the House in 2003. And naively, I accepted that invitation, not knowing what a buzzsaw I was running into when I ran against Mayor Bill. Mayor Bill had been term limited as a mayor, serving his 4 terms, and he'd been term limited city council member as well. Everybody in Broomfield knew Bill Behrens. Needless to say, I did run against him, and this unknown little person from Broomfield lost to Bill Behrens. When the election results came in, my party leadership called and said, "Would you run again in 2006?" And I said, not only no, but blank no, because Bill Behrens was always one of the most popular figures in Broomfield. But I did run against him, and I won, and somehow I beat him. I don't know how. But even though we had been fierce competitors in elections, over the years we had developed a very cordial and friendly relationship. And even up to the last time I saw him, he was offering to teach me how to play golf when I was finished down here at the legislature. And that was a sport at which he excelled. He was wonderful, friendly, smiling, big strapping man, and a force to be reckoned with, and he always, always, always had a smile on his face. He was such a large force that I never really thought that the scourge of cancer could bring him down, but sadly it did. If public service is a noble calling, which I believe it is, then Representative Bill Behrens was a noble man. He devoted his life to public service. So I want to thank him for his service and extend my sympathy to his family and friends, and may he rest forever in peace.
Representative Priola.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Under Rule 26F, I request a 5-minute recess for former members to speak.
Representative Priola, let me make sure that there aren't other members who would like to speak first. Representative Neville, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I didn't get to know Representative Behrens that well, but I was an intern for Representative Kerr down here in 2005, and back in those days we didn't have our own fancy offices like we do now. And so most of my getting to know Representative Behrens was eavesdropping on his conversations with folks. But one thing really stood out to me in all those conversations, and it was one time he was discussing a certain bill with a number of lobbyists, and he expressed concerns on the impacts that this bill would have in future years. And they stated, well, if that happens, we'll just fix it then. And he showed real concern and real constraint. And he said, well, I don't know. I don't know how long I'll be down here, and I'm worried that if I'm not down here to fix it at that time, it won't be fixed, and the citizens of the state would be hurt because of it. And that really stood out to me, because that really showed a statesman mentality, that he knew that what we do here has far-reaching impacts, and he had care and concern for that. And that always stuck with me. I mean, I was a young kid, but that sticks with me today, that little conversation that I heard from Representative Behrens that I overheard by eavesdropping still sticks with me today and still lasts with me today. So thoughts and prayers go out to your family. He was a good one.
Are there other members, current members, that would like to speak? I'm going to head down there. And since my Speaker Pro Tem is not here, I'll ask Representative Lontine to just take the chair here for a minute. Members, I couldn't not visit about Representative Behrens, a good friend of mine for many years when he was mayor, and I worked with him on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners in Boulder County, and we did many things together. And he was indeed, I will echo, a wonderful statesman. We got a lot done with Broomfield. That was the time that Broomfield became its own city and county. We established the US 36 Mayors and Commissioners Council, and I staffed that organization when he was mayor. We took actually some fun trips when we did that to DC and other places. And he was always cordial, always willing to work to reach accommodation and compromise on a whole variety of things that we had to do as local governments. And he left a great stamp on the city and county of Broomfield and on those who worked with him. So thank you, Representatives Priola and Primavera, for bringing this resolution. I certainly agree.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there further members that would like to speak on HM 1004? Seeing none, I will entertain your request that we have a brief recess to hear from former mayors. We will have a brief recess. Senator Nancy Todd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. And this is a sad, happy day. Sad day that Bill's not here to hear the kind words and the things that are being said about him. I had the privilege of serving with Bill. In fact, we came in together and we served together, and there's so many fond memories I have, but one distinct memory that comes to mind that I want to share was the importance for working across the aisle. Bill and I sat across the aisle from each other, but when we came to looking at vision for Colorado, looking for the direction for making Colorado the strongest state, we agreed on so very many different things. And I think one of the fondest memories I have was we were not here at the Capitol, but we were having kind of a new members group conversation. And we both came up with the same idea almost at the same moment, and it was, what is our vision for the state? What is our vision for the state? Not what bills are we going to run, how are we going to position someone against something, but what is the vision for Colorado? And Bill was a visionary. He had an idea of looking on the bright side of everything. He had an idea of being able to be forward-looking and being able to think outside the box. When he was not reelected and did not come back to the House chambers, I really missed not having that collegial spirit of being able to work with him. Military Day was always a favorite. He was one of the few that could still fit in his old uniform, and he would wear it proudly. I think it was like, don't breathe, Bill, or the buttons will pop, but it was always fun to see the pride that he took in having served in the military. Bill was a very dear person. I know his family misses him desperately. I am so sorry for his premature death. He's still so young. He is missed at the Capitol, he is missed in his community, and he's missed in the state. God bless you to the Behrens family. God bless you, Bill, and thank you for being my friend and for serving the state of Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Todd. Are there other former members who choose to speak? Representative Jim Kerr, welcome back.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members, for allowing me this opportunity to talk about my good buddy, Billy from Broomfield, Bill Behrens. Bill Behrens was a character. He was a force. He and I were freshmen together, and he walked in that room, and it was like this big guy. He's an imposing figure. And then all of a sudden he starts talking, and he is Mr. Good Guy. And he liked to mess with the young interns. And he said, okay, young man, he says, let's do an arm wrestle. And he arm wrestled everybody in that room. We were up in the bullpen. It's 217 now, 317 upstairs. And Bill would always come up with some kind of a challenge. And working with Bill, he would figure out how to put things together. He was a great negotiator. He'd walk over to this side of the aisle. He'd walk back over there. He would get in contests with, of all people, the governor of the state of Colorado. He would not back off from anything or anybody if he thought he had the right thing, but he would work it, and he would work it smart. He would get things done, and that's what I really admired about Billy from Broomfield, Bill Behrens, my buddy, my friend, a man who I was honored and privileged to serve with. Thank you, your family over there. Bill was just a prince of a guy, and he will truly be missed. The world is a much less interesting place without Bill Behrens. Thank you.
Is there further discussion from further members, former members? Seeing none, we will come back to order. The question before us now is the adoption of the House Memorial 1004. Representative Priola.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to say some words about Bill Behrens as well. I think a lot of folks have spoke to what a warm and wonderful man he was. A true Colorado boy, heart and heart, or from beginning to end. Loved life, loved golf, and loved to serve. He was my representative when I lived in Westminster for a while. And then I had the honor of being his representative when he lived in Brighton towards the end of his life and was served on United Power's board. I spoke with him many times at a lot of United Power meetings and around town. We'd talk about policy. We'd also talk about our faith as well. He was a man of strong faith. I attended his service in Broomfield, and what struck me is the number of people from around the state that showed up and spoke so glowingly and reverently of what he had done and what he had accomplished in his short life. And I'll never forget the warm eulogy that Bob Grant, a former Democrat DA of Adams County, gave about him and how close they were and how they had collaborated and worked together through the years. And it struck me of what a true leader is and what they can bring to service in the state of Colorado. This has been an honor to run this memorial today, and I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion, Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I have to admit, members, I only met Representative Behrens a couple times, but I think a couple lessons that I get out of that meeting or those meetings is, one is we never know as representatives what the effect is that we have on people sometimes. And it may be a short meeting, it may be a short conversation, but it can have a long-standing effect in that person's memory. And I remember that meeting very well, that short conversation, and I remember all these things about how warm he was, how genuine he was. And the second thing that I remember about him is sort of what Representative Kerr had spoken to, and when he had an idea, he took it to its nth degree, and he said, look, you know, we have issues that we need to address. And he was a visionary, particularly about transportation. And he asked for and got a report from CDOT. And the report said, hey, we need certain needs for $1.3 billion, to address our needs, as a state. And he incurred some of the wrath for asking for that report. And I thought, God, that guy's got guts. And so I think that that's a lesson for all of us, those two things that we need to keep in mind as we do our work on a daily basis. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there further discussion on HM 1004? Seeing none, is there objection to taking a voice vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of the adoption of HM 1004, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. HM 1004 is adopted. Representative Priola.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask that the roll call be added as co-sponsors.
The motion is it a motion, Representative Priola?
Yes, Madam Speaker. I move that the roll
motion,
call be added as co-sponsors.
The motion is that co-sponsors, the current roll call be added as co-sponsors. Seeing no objection, so ordered. Representative Primavera or Representative Priola, would you like to make introductions? We will do a brief recess for that. Please proceed, Representative Priola.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, over here on this side of the chamber, we have his family members. Down here, his wife, Tammy Behrens, son Jake, or grandsons Jake and Nick Muniz, sister-in-law Shar Petty, former colleague Kerr was in the back. We also have guests from United Power towards the back, board member Brian McCormick, president, Bob Grant, assistant secretary and treasurer, Tim Erickson, Ursula Morgan, Susan Petracco, Dave Rose, Gina Bukzik and her daughter, Jackie, and staff of United Power, Troy Whitmore, Director of External Affairs, and guests from Broomfield City Council member Martha, Deborah, and spouse Paul. Okay. And former Mayor Karen Stewart, as well as friends John Laura Vesio and Karen Nelson.
Representative Priola.
Madam Speaker, I ask for a brief recess so we can welcome the guests.
We will continue our brief recess so you can welcome the guests of the family of Bill Behrens. The House will come back to order. Next order of business is announcements and introductions. Any announcements and introductions before we get started with third reading? Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, over on my right is a group from the Florence High School Huskies, the Colorado History class. And in case you think they are unattended, actually their teacher is the second from the left, Randy Ratovich. Welcome to the chamber.
Representative Ryden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I am willing to pay the consequences. We have with us today a young couple from Aurora. As you know, Aurora is a true melting pot community. We have many, many immigrants, and my friends who are here today are natives of Liberia, but they are now U.S. citizens and voting and participating in our electoral system. So I'm very proud to introduce Jugbe Doe Smith and Daniel Charles.
Welcome, and that's only a $2 fine. Is that right? Representative Danielson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, good morning. I just wanted to make a quick announcement that we are joined by some very special young people from House District 24, my district. Please give a warm welcome and a round of applause for the fourth graders from Edgewater Elementary School. Stand up, kids.
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I understand that somewhere in the gallery are the fifth graders from Vail Mountain School, and I would like to very much welcome them and their teacher. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoy it.
Woohoo! Representative Conti. And Representative Kagan. And members, could we have a little more quiet in the chambers, please?
Thank you.
We have your attention to the well. Please proceed, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Senate has urged that we amend the rules of the Support Our Troops competition. And I move that we concur with the Senate amendments to the rules, which Representative Conti will explain.
Representative Conti, what are you two up to now? Please
Thank
proceed.
you, Madam Speaker. We offered the opportunity to our Senate members for a friendly little competition, but the more that they thought about it, the more they came back and said, now wait a minute, we only have 35 members and you have 65, so this is not quite fair. So in our little conference committee, we came up with what we felt like was a fair and equitable arrangement, and that is that we would average the number of items per member. And our competition would bring which body could bring the highest average number of items per member. And so when you're shopping out there, members, with your handy bag, and I hope you've already all put it in the back seat of your car, making it convenient for the next time that you find yourself at a store, that you can think to shop numbers of items. If you bring extra bags, that's great. We'll simply identify them with your name so that your average number will help to increase the pot. So please shop large.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. Representative Kagan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In Judiciary Committee this afternoon, you may notice that House Bill 1393 by Esgar and Foote, Search Warrant for Communicable Diseases, has been taken off today's calendar. We will not be hearing that bill today. We will be hearing that a week from now, House Bill 1393.
Could we have quiet in the chambers for announcements and introductions, please? Please proceed, Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I encourage you to look on today's calendar. You'll see the lengthy list of bills that will be heard in appropriations tomorrow morning at 7:30. And to that list, I would like to add two bills, House Bill 1050 and Senate Bill 27. If your bill is on the list, we'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the Business Affairs and Labor Committee, we have one bill up today at 1:30. That's House Bill 161428. Thank you.
Are there further announcements and introductions? Seeing none, the next order of business is third reading of bills, final passage. Members, please take your seats. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1361.
House Bill 1361 by Representatives Primavera and Becker J. Also Senator Sonnenberg and Newell concerning the ability of a person eligible for prescription drug benefits to choose the pharmacy at which to fill a prescription drug order.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1361 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1361 on third reading and final passage. Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, we heard a pretty lengthy debate on this bill, and I know that those of you who heard it in committee also spent a fair amount of time talking about this one. And I just want to reiterate, if you look at the bill, my name is actually on it as a co-sponsor. I signed on to it before I did my due diligence and will be removing my name from this bill because after further analysis, I found that the vast majority of independent pharmacies are part of these networks. In fact, for Express Scripts, they have 9 pharmacies in the entire state that are not part of the network, and only 1 is out of the Denver metro area. To me, that doesn't show that we have a lack of network capacity in rural Colorado. And I think after looking into it a little bit further, what I also found was that in a lot of instances, and for those of you who have businesses and have worked outside of the capital for a while, you have a choice in contracting. And that's a really important part of this bill, is that these networks have gone out and they have contacted and talked to the pharmacies, whether it's a chain pharmacy or an independent pharmacy, and selected the ones that best fit their network. And if by chance they have decided not to include an independent pharmacy in their network, it may be because of safety reasons. It may be because that pharmacy and that network couldn't come to a contractual agreement. We don't know exactly what it is. But I don't think, as a state legislature, we should be telling any private business who they can and cannot work with and what the terms of those contracts need to be. That is not what state government is supposed to be about. We are supposed to set up parameters under which they're going to form their contracts and set best practices. But telling them that you have to work with this pharmacy, even if they've had a safety violation in the past, even if they have rejected your contract in the past, you have to work with them. I think that is a step too far for this legislature. And I am asking very strongly for a no vote on this bill because of that. Thank you.
Representative Danielson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. I, on the other hand, will be proudly adding my name to the list of co-sponsors to this bill because it is about the patients out in the state. It's about the people who need to access medical care. It's about the people who need access to medication, who are finding a barrier to that access with the current law as it stands. It doesn't force anyone into a contract. What it says is that an insurance company can now come into network with a pharmacist if they both agree to the terms, if the patient chooses this method of delivery, if it suits the health care for this particular person in this particular instance. It doesn't bar anyone from using mail order. If that's your preferred method that is still available to you, by all means, access it. But what this bill does is allow for folks who are finding barriers to their own medical care a way to get those medications in the most convenient and healthy way that they find for themselves. What we have in place right now is a barrier This is your opportunity to break that barrier down and better serve the people across the state. We use the term patient choice, but to me that doesn't really adequately describe what we would be providing for the patients across Colorado. What's happening now is inadequate medical care for them. And in some cases, I think we listened to Representative Corum when he described how, especially in rural parts of the state, your pharmacist may be the only healthcare provider that you have a chance to have a face-to-face discussion with. May be the only person who could sort out contraindications with your prescriptions. We heard in committee not only from patients, but we heard from the pharmacists who said they would absolutely be willing to offer these same medications even if it meant they were offering them at a loss. Because what the bill says is that you have to provide these medications at the same price. Your copay stays the same. So what would happen is, in some cases, these pharmacists would be offering the same medication, but they wouldn't be making any money on it. They're interested in serving their communities. They're interested in providing this critical care for the people who they live with and work with every day. It's adequate care, it's ideal health care is the opportunity that we have now. We heard from folks from Eads, Basalt, Walsenburg, Ordway, Pueblo, and right here in central Denver. And this bill would benefit them all in different ways, but it's your opportunity to improve health care for the folks that live in the state. Thank you to the sponsors for bringing the bill. I strongly encourage, if you're on the fence in any way about this particular piece of legislation, you have a chance here to do the right thing for the folks in Colorado, and I urge your support of this bill. Thank you so much.
Representative Joshi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I rise in support of this bill. This is for several reasons. First of all, we heard the argument against the bill that government should not interfere between two private parties. Can you tell me that we are not interfering in the healthcare? Look at how many laws we are passing related to the healthcare right now. And the biggest one was the Affordable Care Act. It has already started to interfere. So that argument is totally wrong. If you think that we should not interfere between the two private parties, let's get rid of all those laws and let the patient and the doctor, the provider and the patient, just deal with it. That would be the best way to do it. But until we do that, our duty is to protect the patients and the small businesses like the small pharmacies. Big insurance companies are getting government subsidies. Just last year, actually, the Congress has filed a lawsuit. Insurance companies got $5.1 billion to just offset their losses. Also, you will be hearing more and more about narrow networks. These insurance companies are making their networks narrower and narrower. I hope you all saw our insurance commissioners, they issued a advisory about the adequacy of the network. I just saw it on my emails recently, I think within the last week or so. So even our insurance commissioner is asking to make sure that the networks are adequate. So this is happening all the time. So the argument that this is just between two private parties is no longer true. Government is already interfering in us. So our best duty right now is to protect our patients and protect our small businesses against all this government interference. So I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. I rise in very strong support of House Bill 1361. I believe it's good for everyone in Colorado, but especially for rural districts like mine, where the family pharmacy is not only a very important small business in our communities, but for many of my constituents, it is the only healthcare provider that they get to see face-to-face on a usual basis that is not an hour or more from their home. It becomes even more important for patients who are seeing multiple specialists, each of whom is prescribing a different drug for the patient. It is the pharmacist who helps for that patient to sort out the potential contraindications of that series of drugs. Moreover, we've heard talk of contracts. I've heard from my constituents that some of their providers changed horses in midstream. The patients believed that they could utilize their local family pharmacy when they signed up with these providers. However, that is starting to change, and I got, especially from 5 constituents in particular, a big concern about the fact that their provider no longer allowed them in the middle of the contract year, not at the end, in the middle, to utilize their local pharmacy. Moreover, those of you not familiar with rural mail delivery service, it is a lot less reliable and predictable, which sometimes we love because it's quirky, but in this particular instance, it makes it very difficult for patients. Moreover, in many of our mountain communities, in the towns, not the unincorporated areas, in the towns, mail service is not to the home. The U.S. Postal Service will not deliver to the home, but only to P.O. boxes to which the individual then has to drive. So for many different reasons, this bill is critical to keep people healthy and to provide them with choices in health care. Thank you.
Representative Buck or Representative Quorum? Please proceed, Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. I think it's very important that we keep our small rural pharmacies in business. You know, there will not be the opportunity for the big box pharmacy in many of those places. I told a story on seconds, and I'm going to repeat it because I think it's very vital to what we talked about. In one of my small rural pharmacies, family went to the doctor, and it's 100 miles to the doctor one way. Doctor wrote a prescription. He went back home. The young child became much worse. So on Friday night, they called the local pharmacist and said, "What's going on here?" Pharmacist says, "I don't know. I'll come over and look." He went over and looked at him, and he said, "You need to get this child to an emergency room immediately." Had he not done that, that child would have died within 48 hours because he had brucellosis. He would have died. There wasn't a doctor to go to. Many of those places, the pharmacist and the veterinarian is the only one that knows what's going on in health. Now, veterinarians don't do health care, but they're very well trained, and they can advise that you need to see a doctor, and this is why. That pharmacist is the greatest defense that we have for health care in small communities in rural Colorado. I urge a yes vote.
Representative Kagan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And for the last several weeks, I was very much on the fence on this bill. I didn't know which way I was going, but I'm now very proud to support this bill and to urge you to do so as well. And let me tell you what it was that I learned that persuaded me to unequivocally support this bill. Without this bill, insurance companies have the right to narrow their networks, to take existing network pharmacies out of the network. And they say two arguments against this bill. One, we have very broad networks. We have very good coverage. And two, we need to be able to exclude people from networks where they are not doing the job right by our patients, by our insureds. Well, the fact of the matter is they have very broad networks now, But without this bill, we don't know whether they will continue to have very broad networks. They can narrow them. They can narrow them. And they have every incentive to narrow them to make their insureds move toward, not to make, but to incentivize them to move toward mail order. So we must ensure that they don't narrow the networks to the detriment of patients. And this bill does that. And the second argument they make, as I said, is that we must be able to exclude networks because some of them exclude pharmacies from networks because some of those pharmacies may not be properly serving our insureds. And we need to police that. That is the job of the of the Board of Pharmacy. The Board of Pharmacy is keeping an eagle eye on pharmacists. And if pharmacists are not doing the job right, it is the Board of Pharmacy's job to make sure that those licenses are revoked, suspended, disciplined in some way. That is the Board of Pharmacy's job. It is not a very interested party, i.e. the insurer's job. That is why we have the Board of Pharmacy. So we need to keep the networks from being narrowed. We do not need to police the performance of pharmacies through the insurance companies. We already have a method of policing. And so if patients' interests are going to win out, I urge you to vote yes on this bill, which I will be proud to sign on as a co-sponsor.
Representative Buck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And honestly, this bill has torn me up, and you know, so what to that? But this is one of the hardest bills I think that I've ever been a part of. Folks, I look at the overall picture that this is exactly why government should not be in healthcare. Because pretty soon we're going to start deciding who gets what and where. So as much as I'd like to be a co-sponsor, I'm going to be taking my name off. But honestly, let this be noted by the insurance companies that we are watching, because we cannot afford to not include everyone if we're going down this government health care. But I don't feel that this is the state's duty to get involved in contracts. So I would appreciate a no on this vote, and thank you for listening.
Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I come down in strong support of this bill also. I didn't walk into committee in strong support of this bill, and I think this is a good example of the value of the legislative process. We've been hearing from our friends out there on the other side of the glass for a while. They're professionals. They take care of their clients. We've been working with them for years, and they make a case, and I say, okay, I hear that. I hear what you're saying. And, you know, they present it from their perspective, but honestly. And then we go into committee, and we hear that case, and by golly, you know, it sounds like they're set. We're fine. But then something else happens. We hear from ordinary citizens. And I haven't seen anybody change votes in committee like a citizen of our state, somebody that comes and tells their story. So you've got companies that are saying, we're doing all of this, but what we're missing and what we got in that committee hearing was the voice of people who are really disadvantaged by this, the voice of people who really need to make their own choices, to be able to decide on their own, the voice of people in rural areas who, as has been said several times, the pharmacist is really important. And, you know, Representative Coram talked about the veterinarians being important too, but I think he misspoke on that one. But regardless, when you hear the people's voices, I think you really hear how it fills in, and what I heard certainly made me a very strong proponent of this bill. I think it's for the people. We want to do this, and just do it right. Vote yes. Thank you.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was glad to see the number of people that came up here to the well and talked about how torn they were on this bill, and some that decided to take their name off of the bill and so forth. And I think that's one of the toughest things that we do here in this chamber is to initially have decided this was a good proposition that we were reading, and then we start looking at it and we think, maybe that's not so good. I pulled more cards on this bill than I pulled on any other one this year. I don't know about you all, but I mean, it was interesting. You know, if you're undecided, you get a lot of cards. If you flip, you get an avalanche. And I had to dig out of that avalanche several times on this one. Because we all know that in this chamber, you know, number one, you vote your conscience, number two, you vote your constituents, and number three, you vote your caucus. And I thought about that, and I thought, you know, my conscience isn't tearing me up on this one because I'm confused like many of you were and are and probably will be after you vote. So I thought, okay, what about my constituents? And I'd heard from a couple, but no big deal. So we started calling the pharmacists, including the pharmacy in Florence, Colorado. Said, what do you think about this? I got my answer from every one of those pharmacies. And some of you know how it works in small communities. The word gets out that someone's asking questions. Then you start getting calls from individuals. So then the lines lit up on that and started hearing some of these stories like some of you all have experienced. And I can tell you, folks, I'm not an expert in business. I'm not an expert in healthcare and pharmacy. I fully admit that. I know a little bit about education, but even in those instances, I talk to my people. And I hope you all did too on this, because it's easy to listen to the world out here on issues such as this, but it's a whole lot tougher to listen to the world that you go home to. And that's where I'm coming from. We called those pharmacies. We heard the people. As I said, I hope you did too, because I will be voting my constituents, and I hope that you will too. Thank you.
Representative Everett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me put this down to Libby Szabo level. Representative Wilson, excellent speech. I was wondering if those pharmacists wrote you a script to vote yes or vote no on this bill. That's my big question there. You know, we heard this bill in committee after hours and hours and hours and hours of testimony. One thing became abundantly clear, as it has in this chamber over the last 4 years I've been down here. It's not our job or our role or the role of government to micromanage businesses, and that's exactly what this bill does. This bill puts a huge burden on freedom of contract. This puts a huge burden on telling businesses what they should be doing. If we want to micromanage a business, if you want to micromanage these health insurers, then become their CEO, buy them out. That's what you can do if you want to micromanage the healthcare industry. However, it's not our job to do it through legislation. I urge a strong no vote on 1361.
Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm opposed to this bill, and I spoke on second reading, so I don't have to go into a lot of facts. I just want to cover two issues because many have been covered already today. We heard some testimony about barriers, that there are barriers for our constituents to be able to go to pharmacies or be able to buy their pharmaceuticals. We did get to hear this in committee, and the biggest barriers are price. The barrier that the patient didn't want to have to pay the higher price at the pharmacy of their choice, higher than mail order, even though mail order may or may not have been convenient for them. What they didn't want to do is have that price difference. And so the laws of economics are pretty clear that if they don't want to pay that price, then that price is going to be spread throughout everybody in the network. And that's part of the reason why employers come to healthcare providers, the carriers, and ask for a better price, and that
results in a smaller network, and that is only to pass those costs back on to the patients or the employees. And so there's a reason for that network in order to get that price that we all want. And in this case, what this bill does that these pharmacies don't tell people is that they want to be able to match those low prices so that they can get that business. But those low prices are not going to stay low, because once we spread out that volume, that's what's going to happen is those prices are going to go up, and they're going to go up for all of us. That's just a law of economics. And then last, I know there's a point made that, and it's very true, government is so interfering with health care. And we see that in numerous bills. You just name mandated coverage, or obviously in a bill like this. But the solution is not to keep interfering just because we are. We've got to stop the war of interfering and micromanaging. So I would ask for a no vote on this so that we can stop the interference. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, everybody, for your interest in this bill. I think it's really important. Obviously, you do too. Let me just tell you some of the groups that have supported this piece of legislation. I know Representative Wilson said he'd talk to his pharmacists, but actually the Colorado Pharmacists Society supports this legislation. They realize that their jobs are on the line should everybody be forced into mail order, and that their businesses that they've had in local communities are on the line, and they've served some of their communities multi-generational. The NFIB supports the legislation for the same reason, and so does the Colorado Retail Council. Disability Law Colorado supports this legislation. I know a lot of you who have been lobbied haven't heard the testimony that we heard in committee, but we heard what I thought was a very compelling testimony from someone who had HIV/AIDS and didn't really want to have to do mail order, but that's what their insurance plan said they needed to do. They live in an apartment complex. They didn't want their medications left out in front of their door, even though maybe their medications weren't marked. Their neighbors asked questions, and they didn't want to have to explain what medications they were getting. The insurance plan said, well, have it delivered to your apartment manager. And they said, we don't want our apartment manager to know that we have HIV/AIDS. Well, then have it delivered to work. Well, they didn't want their coworkers to know that they had HIV/AIDS. So Disability Law Colorado supports it for probably that group and for many other reasons. Oftentimes people with disabilities don't have transportation to get to the pharmacy that's indicated on their plan. And the ARC of Colorado supports it as well, because in order to use mail order, which oftentimes is the only option in your plan, it's very difficult for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to make that call every month, figure out the phone tree, and be able to order their medication. Representative Leonard talked about the law of economics, and we've been hearing that House Bill 1371 will raise health care costs. There was a study done in South Dakota, and they've had this legislation in place since the early 1990s. And in 2014, by a vote of 62% to 38%, they added all health care providers to the Any Willing Provider statute. So 30 other states have done this, and not one other state has repealed it due to cost. There was a professor at the University of South Dakota that did a study on this, and he said, we find no evidence that Any Willing Provider legislation would increase personal health care expenditures in South Dakota. And we heard from people, for the legislators in the rural areas, we heard from people from Eads, Ordway, Basalt, and Walsenburg, and Pueblo. Representative Escar, just in case you're wondering. The pharmacists were worried that this forcing people into mail order would require that they eventually close the doors of their local pharmacist, and they've provided services to the community for many, many years. One of the patients that I talked to said that their plan changed. They signed up for their plan because their local pharmacy was in it, and then their plan changed on them after they selected their plan. Another patient said that they didn't realize that they had to do mail order because it was on page 10 of the 15 pages of the plan in small font. So this is an issue of access to health care, an ability for a patient to talk to the most trusted provider in their community. It's about small business, it's about patient access, and it's probably the very first year that I will get a good rating from CUT, because CUT also supports this.
Further discussion. Representative Jay Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, hearing from a lot of you about the cards that have come in and how many times you've went out to the lobby on this bill, and I take great pride in making you work a lot. There's a lot of arguments for and against this bill. And there's been a lot of tension between this bill as what's right, what's wrong, who we follow, is there really a problem? I even had a legislator come up and say, well, this is what you get for living in a rural area. And prices may be more. Well, I'll tell you this, I can't wait till you have to move closer to your food. You know, if that's the theory we want to go, let's see how close you can move to Fort Morgan, Colorado. I hear we have a great Domino's there, though. In all seriousness, this was a long, drawn-out process as we go. There's a lot of people that'll tell you that this is going to raise costs. This is going to raise costs. We sat in committee for I don't know how many hours. Not one example of how it raised costs in any of the 27 states that it is currently being used in. In fact, all the insurance companies could bring forward was a study from Yale that said costs might or will go up. Not an example after this has been used in 27 different states. I don't know about you, but when I deal with the insurance company, they know exactly what my costs are. They know exactly why they tell me they're raising my rates every year since 2004. I'm telling you, if they say there are so many factors, and this is what we heard, there are so many factors that are factored into this every year that we can't tell you if this raised costs or not, we can't attribute it to this. Then you ought to walk in the room and fire your financial analyst. There is no way that you can tell me, when you can give me a bill and tell me exactly what you're paying for and what you're not, you can't tell me if this attributes to a cost increase? There's no way. You know the reason they can't tell you? Because there is no cost increase. When you have willing pharmacies and pharmacies of choice that people have used for years, that are willing to match the price in the terms of the insurance company, what are we doing? And then we have the argument if it's economies of scale, Representative Becker. We have to push everybody to one place to reduce costs. How well has that been working for you the last few years? My costs haven't went down. But you know what has happened? I've heard from person after person about how they now get to go get one-time prescription at the 95% that are in network. You're right, 95% are in Express Scripts network. But that's not every network. That's just theirs. But let's talk about that. 95% of us get to go to our local pharmacy once. And then you're mandated to use mail from there. That's fine and dandy. This isn't against mail. If you like that, great, use it. But I'm getting phone calls of people saying, hey, I've always got it here, I like it here, I trust this person that's in front of me, this is what I want to do. Why should we not be able to do that? They say you're getting in the middle of contracts. That's the other argument. Middle of contracts. Contract of adhesion. I love that word, learned it very well last year. I'm not an attorney, I don't play one on TV either, but a contract of adhesion with my health care. I don't get a choice with my health care? Isn't that what we've been griping about for 3-4 years, that we don't get a choice? All I'm saying is that I should have a choice. I should have a choice of what pharmacy I need to go to. I should have the ability to walk into my local pharmacy. If I want to use mail order, that's great. You should have that ability. But in no way, shape, or form have I ever heard up here that saying giving choice and expanding competition raises costs. But oddly enough, that happens here. I don't understand. I look at the business groups that are for and against this, and I shake my head. NFIB, who's a great friend for rural and small business, is for it. Then I have another big business group against it on the other side. What's the right answer? The right answer is to allow for choice and protect the small businesses that also have to deal with this in rural parts of Colorado. Business just isn't in the Front Range. And again, if you don't believe that, move towards your food. This bill has been a controversial one, and I know, and tempers have flared, including mine. But it's really, honestly, gets down to this. We match price, we match terms, we allow people that have used their local pharmacies to keep using it. You hear that the insurance companies say one time, it's just trying to push people into your rural pharmacies because they're not doing very well. And then they testified that this wouldn't amount to enough to do anything for a pharmacy. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. If we're not going to allow for choice in health care, I'm not villainizing anybody. You get to use mail if you want to use mail. If you want to run 40 or 50 miles and go to a bigger pharmacy, you can do that. And saying that local, rural pharmacies are unsafe is just a flat-out lie. I've gone to them all. I'm still standing here. Please allow us to have the choice to use our pharmacy if I want, to use mail if I want, and drive to a bigger pharmacy if I want. Receiving a notice in the mail saying that your contract of adhesion is all of a sudden changed and you have to use mail order just doesn't seem fair. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1361? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption passage of House Bill 1361. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 34 ayes and 31 noes, House Bill 1361 is passed. Co-sponsors. Oh, Representative Lawrence. Oh, okay, we'll do co-sponsors first. We will close the machine for co-sponsors. Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask that my name be removed as a co-sponsor.
Representative Buck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I ask that my name be removed also.
Representative Escar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask my name be removed as a co-sponsor.
Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask that my name be removed as co-sponsor.
All requests are granted. Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask that my name be put on as a co-sponsor because I missed the button in time.
I can't. I'm very sorry, Representative Tyler. You'll have to wait until we repass it if we do. It's not possible under the rules. And sorry. Okay, I think we're ready. Madam Majority Leader. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1276.
House Bill 1276 by Representatives Hamner and Quorum, also Senators Roberts and Donovan, concerning Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety's ability to conduct emergency responses at legacy hard rock mining sites.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1276 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1276 on third reading and final passage. Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would move House Bill 1276.
It's been moved.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But, you know, it doesn't hurt to double up every
I
once
got
in a
so
while.
wound up in the last bill, I forgot where we were. Thank you.
So have I, Representative Quorum. Representative Hamner.
Speaker, I don't know what's happening here, but I just came to help Representative Quorum.
So is there any further discussion on House Bill 1276? Representative Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Considering that last bill, is there any medication that can help Representative Quorum and yourself with your memory?
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1276? I certainly hope not. Seeing none, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 64 ayes and 1 no, House Bill 1276 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 145.
Senate Bill 145 by Senators Baumgartner and Donovan, also Representatives Mitch Bush and Willett, concerning an alternative mechanism for creating a subdistrict of the Colorado River Water Conservation District.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 145 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of Senate Bill 145 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 62 ayes and 3 noes, Senate Bill 145 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1009.
House Bill 1009 by Representative Buck, also Senator Cook, concerning the issuance of fallen heroes license plates in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1009 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1009 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 56 ayes and 9 noes, House Bill 1009 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1034.
House Bill 1034 by Representative Sias, also Senator Garcia, concerning emergency medical responder registration in the Department of Public Health and Environment in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1034 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1034 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 59 ayes and 6 noes, House Bill 1034 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1047.
House Bill 1047 by Representatives Buck and Winter, also Senators Newell and Roberts, concerning the adoption of an interstate compact to allow physicians to become licensed in multiple states through an expedited licensure process in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1047 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1047 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 63 ayes and 2 noes, House Bill 1047 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1056.
House Bill 1056 by Representative Tyler, also Senators Baumgartner and Todd, concerning requirement that the holder of an abandoned motor vehicle use the records of a national title search to notify persons with an interest in the motor vehicle that the vehicle has been towed and is subject to sale in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1056 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1056 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 43 ayes and 22 noes, House Bill 1056 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1059.
House Bill 1059 by Representative Lawrence, also Senator Todd, concerning definition of judge for the crime of retaliation against a judge in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1059 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1059 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Lantine. Close the machine. With 65 ayes and no noes, House Bill 1059 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1114.
House Bill 1114 by Representative Del Grosso, also Senator Ulibarri, concerning the repeal of duplicate reporting requirements.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1114 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1114 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 65 ayes and no noes, House Bill 1114 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1160.
House Bill 1160 by Representatives Janal and Lantine, also Senator Tate, concerning the continuation of the Surgical Assistant and Surgical Technologist Registration Program in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1160 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1160 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 49 ayes and 16 noes, House Bill 1160 is passed. Co-sponsors.
She can vote down there. Yeah, that'd probably be best.
Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1197.
House Bill 1197, Representatives Carver and Melton, also Senators Todd and Crowder, concerning requirement that state agencies to implement a program to streamline the granting of occupational credentials to veterans based on military training in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1197 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1197 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Ransom, close the machine. With 62 aye votes, 3 no votes, 0 excused, House Bill 1197 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1211.
House Bill 1211, Representative Melton, also Senators Baumgartner and John, concerning licensing marijuana transporters in connection with making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1211 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1211 on third reading and final passage. And further discussion, seeing none, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Buck. Close the machine. With 48 aye votes, 17 no votes, House Bill 1211 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1227.
House Bill 1227, Representatives Kagan and Del Grosso, also Senators Hill and Crowder, concerning exemptions from child support enforcement requirements as a condition to receive child care assistance on the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1227 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1227? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1227 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Lee. Close the machine. With 58 aye votes, 7 no votes, and 0 excused, House Bill 1227 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1256.
House Bill 1256 by Representative Brown, also Senator Sonberg, concerning a study regarding the creation of additional water storage in the South Platte River Basin in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1256 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1256? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1256. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, no votes, no excused, House Bill 1256 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1280.
House Bill 1280 by Representative Winter, also Senator Lambert, concerning the regulation of air ambulance service in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1280 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1280 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, 0 no votes, 0 excused, House Bill 1280 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1282.
House Bill 1282 by Representatives Becker, Kay, and Pedersen, also Senators Todd and Tate, concerning the alignment of regular biennial school elections with disclosure requirements governing other election races and the Fair Campaign Practices Act in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1282 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1282? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1282. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, no votes, 0 excused, House Bill 1282 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1293.
House Bill 1293, Representative Melton, also Senator Holbert, concerning the addition of a brand new designated certificate of title to a motor vehicle that has been subject to an insurance claim in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1293 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion on House Bill 1293? Seeing none, the question before us is House Bill 1293. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 34 aye votes, 31 no votes, 0 excused, House Bill 1293 passes. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1295.
House Bill 1295 by Representative Salazar, also Senator Ulibarri, concerning the creation of a Chicano special license plate in connection with making appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1295 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion on House Bill 1295? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1295. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Lawrence. Close the machine. With 48 aye votes, 17 no votes, 0 excused, 0 absent, House Bill 1295 passes. Si se puede. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 58.
Senate Bill 58 by Senator Hill, also Representative Becker Kay, concerning the regulation of certain foods in connection with exempting certain food producers from licensure, inspection, and other regulation, making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 58 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 58? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 58 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, no no votes, 0 excused, Senate Bill 58 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 80.
Senate Bill 80 by Senator Newell, also Representatives Whiston Pabon, concerning secured marijuana cultivation requirements.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 80 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Wist.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I just want to clarify for everyone, what was once, I think, a very convoluted and complicated bill is now a very simple bill. And that is that if you are growing medicinal marijuana, it has to be in an enclosed and locked space. And as you vote, I'd like you to remember this picture. And wherever you were on Amendment 64, in terms of having marijuana in our state, I'd suggest to you that I don't think that our communities voted for that. I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 80.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 80 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 54 aye votes, 11 no votes, 0 excused, Senate Bill 80 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1340.
House Bill 1340 by Representative Tyler, also Senator Scott, concerning exemption for certain proposed public projects from the requirement that the location of a public project be reviewed by a county planning commission. The proposed location of the public project is in the unincorporated territory of the county.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1340 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to take a few minutes of your time, if I could, members, on this bill. I probably should have seen this a little earlier. I did speak a little bit on second reading, but I only want to point out 4 words to you to go over. They're all in the title. And those 4 words are exemption, public project, planning commission, and unincorporated. So for all of you folks that are in incorporated areas, you can sit back and relax and just vote on principle, because Denver, Boulder, Colorado Springs, all the other incorporated cities, towns, if you have mayors or city council members, you needn't worry, they're not asking for an exemption. These are areas such as mine, Evergreen, Genesee, and the half of Jefferson County that's in unincorporated area. Those 400,000 acres, 4 times the size of Denver, is in unincorporated areas. And the rest of you get to vote on principle, but it directly impacts us. The second word is the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, as you folks know, is made up of 5, 7, 9 citizens that volunteer to review site plans, is usually what they do. They help the commissioners with recommendations on some zoning issues, definitely some master plan issues, but they don't do any building permits. You'll know that it's zoning, master plans, site plans, and building permits. This issue is really focused on site plans. After one has zoning, after one has a master plan, it's really site plan review that these counties want exemption from. Next is public projects. These aren't water lines that are being moved, or the bill would have said water lines or easements. These are projects. If you drive by Evergreen as you're way up to the mountains, you probably don't notice those cell towers anymore. They look like pine trees because that's Planning Commission. That's what Planning Commission does. It tells municipalities that we're not going to have a sand and salt pile look like that. We are going to have some screening on your projects that you're doing, whether it's you've got to run a line, electrical line out, maybe it needs to be buried instead of overhead, or easements need to go here instead of there. They need to be reviewed by the Planning Commission. So the principle of this issue is the last one, the exemption. And I want to recall that the issue here is whether the government is for the people and by the people and of the people, or whether the government can make its own rules and play by a different set of rules than it requires the rest of landowners to pay for. So by being exempted from planning commissions, the people's review of public projects, of course, it could save money and streamline. We all know the cost of government regulation. But that government regulation ought to be able to regulate itself. And so for our body to exempt some public entity from being regulated by its own citizens, its own volunteer citizens, is mischievous at best. This current law, as we have it, requires that if there's a public project, it goes through the Planning Commission like anybody else. This bill, however, gives special status to the government. And it says even though you require every other landowner to have zoning, master planning, site plan review, and building permit, somehow public projects are different and don't impact other landowners. Well, I dare say in my field of land development that that's not true. Public projects need to be reviewed by planning commissions just like every other landowner has to do in order to protect others. Those of you who argued about oil rigs being 500 feet away from other landowners would be very sympathetic to this, because a government agency that didn't have setbacks, landscaping, noise, sound, traffic, regulation imposed upon it by the citizens of the Planning Commission would have a free rein to do whatever they wanted and however they wanted it to their landowners. So I would urge a no vote on this. Thank you.
Representative Tyler for a rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I would like to note that the previous statement was a pretty serious mischaracterization of the bill at hand here. Let me give you let's try an example here. for the counties.
Representative Tyler, give me 1 second. Members, we are seated as a House right now for third reading of bills. Let's give our full attention to Representative Tyler in the well. Thank you. Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. So let me give you some examples of things that this would exempt the counties from, things that are already exempt in the private sector. For example, any change to a lease arrangement of leased property that the county has made, any change in the lease, change in time, change in amount, currently, without this law, has to go to the Planning Commission. Is there any private business that has to go to the Planning Commission to sign a lease with a tenant? Heavens no. Also, things like moving a utility box on one side, from one side to an existing electrical substation, which has been permitted and zoned, to the other, would require a Planning Commission review. Does any private sector business need to have a Planning Commission review to change the configuration of their electrical panels or to change walls? No. But the counties currently are required to under this. All right? An extension of a list, an expansion of the county office within the same location requires a planning review. Now, is that required for a private sector? No, it's not. So this is only items that do not apply to the private sector that are pretty trivial, extending a pipeline on site a little bit. That would not go through a planning review for the private sector. This is just wasteful money that needs to be spent for no purpose. The private sector doesn't have to do this. And the public sector, what we're saying in this bill is if you've got a minor change of something that's already been permitted, already been through the planning sector, planning commission, already been through the commissioner's approval, as opposed to any private sector, the counties currently have to go to the planning commission again. That's going to be removed from this for minor issues that don't much matter. And if people are having a problem with it, the commissioners can absolutely still take it up. And we put a reporting requirement in here. This is a pretty straightforward bill to save money. It doesn't provide something that the private sector doesn't already have the opportunity to do. We do not have these requirements on the private sector. That's why in the public sector we're saying these small things should be done without wasting a lot of time and money. Thank you.
Representative Rupe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Members, one time I used to do military master planning at the Air Force Academy, and we would review both the public as well as the private development that was done adjacent to the installation. And what I can tell you is that oftentimes we would have public projects that directly affected the installation and surrounding properties without any process sometimes within the city of Colorado Springs. And the most vociferous debates by the public were over these particular types of projects, where you had stormwater lines, where you moved a pump station that directly affected the people that lived around and near these public projects. I think that because you have taxpayer money and you are interested in how these different public project works are done, that you should absolutely subject them to the same requirements that you do the private sector, because they have every responsibility to you as individual citizens as well as a community. I want to take you back to the 1950s when the interstates were done. And I know that's not in the same context as this, but I want to tell you how out of control this situation can become. Interstates were dividing neighborhoods in the 50s and 60s. And it is the result of that that we now have the National Environmental Protection Act, and we do EPA reviews and citizen stakeholder projects, because these projects were dividing neighborhoods and taking land without due process. And these were public projects. I encourage a no vote on this.
Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Just a few very brief words. These examples of lease extensions and switch boxes, I wish would have been detailed in the bill if it's just those things. But the bill doesn't. The bill exempts all things that were listed that at one time this body listed and said to the counties, in these unincorporated areas, you must come to your own planning commission, you as planning commissioners, go to your own planning commission to go and make sure that roads, parks, public ways, public grounds, public space, public buildings and structures, or public utilities shall go through the planning commission. This bill does not cross off a few lines in there and say, by the way, we want to modify this for some very innocuous lease changes. This gives carte blanche to everything that was in that bill, in statute today, says you're exempted from everything above. And so one could make a case that this is fairly innocuous use of taxpayer money and therefore it should be exempted. But the Planning Commission is appointed and serves at the discretion of the planning commissioners. Those planning commissioners only, or the planning commission only gives recommendations back to the county commissioners. So it's the county commissioners that would have an enormous sway in being able to cite buildings and structures that the county builds in these unincorporated areas. And so therefore, I maintain that we follow the letter of the law here and not just ideas about how this could or could not be applied, that in fact, this opens the gateway for a lot of abuse by county commissioners. Thank you.
Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. And I just want to reiterate, this is a very small bill, and it's only concerning if the proposed project is permitted under existing zoning laws or part of a master plan. This has nothing to do with the horrible process that happened in the mid-50s to rip through communities and condemn land. This has nothing to do with property condemnation. It has nothing to do whatsoever with punching a highway through somebody's neighborhood. It has nothing to do with anything that the private sector, in their normal course of events, in their normal course of zoning reviews, gets to do. So this is just a small thing for items that are permitted and part of a plan to move from one side of a building to another or extend a lease. I'll go back to the point, you know, a private sector business does not have to get a planning commission to approve their lease. The counties do, though, which is pretty pointless since it's already permitted. It's just unneeded paperwork, unneeded regulation, unneeded red tape. That's what this is eliminating some red tape, which is involved with trivial matters. Please vote yes on this bill.
Representative Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd also urge a yes vote on this bill for some of the same reasons that Representative Tyler just said, but we are actually reducing some red tape, and it is very small. On page 2, line 17, you'll notice that the following that the Planning Commission has already approved. So this process has already gone through some of that approval process. Again, you know, if we're moving something slightly to the east or slightly to the west in an unincorporated area, I think this will help reduce red tape. I think this will also help get projects going in a manner that's already been approved by a planning commission. So I would urge a yes vote on this. I don't think it's going to be the doom and gloom necessarily that you know, some of the earlier things in the 50s and 60s, but I think it will help some of our businesses. I think it will help some of our citizens. And if it goes too far, we can always review it. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1340 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Conti, Quorum, McCann, Pedersen. Close the machine. With 46 aye votes, 19 no votes, 0 excused, 0 absent, House Bill 1340 passes. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1318.
House Bill 1318 by Representative Wistall, Senator Newell, concerning the regulation of charitable solicitations by the Secretary of State in connection with modifying, clarifying, filing requirements and enforcement of the Colorado Charitable Solicitations Act and making an appropriation.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1318 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Klingenschmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Under Rule 21C, I request to be excused from the vote.
Under Rule 21C, Representative Klingenschmidt will be excused from voting on House Bill 1318. Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1318. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 53 aye votes, 11 no votes, 1 excused, 0 absent, House Bill 1318 passes. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1217.
House Bill 1217 by Representative Wright and also Senator Carroll, concerning the implementation of certain recommendations set forth in 2013 study of comparable HOA information and resource centers prepared by the Colorado Division of Real Estate pursuant to House Bill 131134.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1217 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1217 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Escar. Close the machine. With 36 aye votes, 29 no votes, 0 excused, 0 absent, House Bill 1217 passes. Co-sponsors. Tyler, do you have a Senate sponsor on your bill? You need a Senate sponsor. Let's go ahead and lay that over then. Close the machine. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to lay over House Bill 1368 until April 19th.
Seeing no objection, House Bill 1368 will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1391.
House Bill 1391 by Representative Pabon, also Senator Lundberg, concerning prohibition against non-attorneys providing legal services related to immigration matters.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1391 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1391, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 39 aye votes, 26 no votes, 0 excused, 0 absent, House Bill 1391 is passed. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors, just kidding. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 85.
Senate Bill 85 by Senator Stem and also Representative Willett concerning the Colorado Uniform Trust Decanting Act.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 85 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 85 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, 0 no votes, 0 excused, 0 absent, Senate Bill 85 is passed. Co-sponsors. Maybe yes. If you don't mind. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1334.
House Bill 1334 by Representative Winter, also Senator Hodge, concerning the ability of county governments to promote inclusionary zoning programs in the unincorporated areas of a county.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1334 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1334 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 34 aye votes, 31 no votes, 0 excused, 0 absent, House Bill 1334 passes. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1367.
House Bill 1367 by Representatives Hamner and Rankin, also Senators Hodge and Marble, concerning the recategorization of certain counties for the purpose of determining salaries paid to county officers in those counties.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1367 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Conti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I request to be recused from this vote under Rule 21C.
Representative Conti will be excused under Rule 21C. Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1367, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1367 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Lee. Close the machine. With 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, 0 absent, House Bill 1367 is passed. Co-sponsors.
Representative Duran is here. 1319, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, I'm laying that one over. And I'm laying also 1078. Yes.
Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to lay over House Bill 1319 until April 19th.
Seeing no objection, House Bill 1319 will lay over as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1397.
House Bill 1397, Representatives Ryden and Windholz, Senator Hodge, concerning the completion of the Fitzsimmons State Veterans Community Living Center to provide a continuum of residential care options.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1397 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1397 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Landgraf.
Oh.
Close the machine. Oh.
Sorry, I forgot to unexcuse Conti, so you have to ask for further vote.
Okay.
Wait, actually.
We have a Mr. Kohler difficulty. Stand by.
It's open now. Is it not? It's not working. Oh, there's it goes. Awesome. Nice job.
Okay, we're good.
Close the machine. With 64 aye votes, 1 no vote, 0 excused, 0 absent, House Bill 1397 is passed. Co-sponsors. Representative Durand, you can be a co-sponsor.
Please, I want to be a co-sponsor.
Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1078. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to lay over House Bill 1078 until April 19th.
Seeing no objection, House Bill 1078 will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1329.
House Bill 1329, Representative Lee, also Senators Shuffle and Heath, concerning laws governing limited liability companies codified in Article 80 of Title 7 of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1329 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1329 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, 0 no votes, 0 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1329 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1330.
House Bill 1330, Representative Lee, all Senators Shuffle and Heath, concerning authority to file a correction statement with the Secretary of State. A document previously filed was delivered to the Secretary of State or for filing an error.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1330 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1330 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Becker K. Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, no no votes, 0 excused, 0 absent, House Bill 1330 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. And for the hat trick, Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1333.
House Bill 1333, Representative Lee, Senator Shuffle and Heath, concerning laws governing partnerships codified in Title VII of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1333 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1333 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Esgar, Klingenschmidt, McCann, Rankin. Close the machine. With 63 aye votes, 2 no votes, 0 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1333 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of Senate Bill 16.
Senate Bill 16 by Senator Stebbins and Cadman, also Representatives Hollinghurst and Lawrence, concerning the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District in connection with amending the ballot question concerning the extension of the district to be submitted to the voters and modifying statutory provisions concerning the administration of the district.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 16 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 16 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 49 aye votes, 16 no votes, 0 excused, 0 absent, Senate Bill 16 is passed. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors. Pay attention to the sponsors of this measure. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1423.
House Bill 1423, Representatives Lundin and Garnett, also Senator Hill, concerning measures to maximize trust and use of student data in the elementary and secondary education system.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of House Bill 1423 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1423 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Humphrey. Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, 0 no votes, 0 excused, 0 absent, House Bill 1423 passes. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow, April 15th.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Announcements and introductions. Representative Becker Kay.
They just walked out. The good students from Foothills Elementary, my neighborhood school in Boulder, Colorado. Bye, guys. Glad you could make it to the Capitol.
Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. And Representative Becker, you sure that wasn't my Foothills Elementary School that was here? I could have been a confusion, you know? Anyway, Transportation Committee. We're going to reverse the order of the bills today. We're going to hear 1325 by Garnett first, and we will hear 1342 by Moreno after that. See you at about 11:37.
See you at 11:37. Representative Court.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Finance Committee, we've got some bills up. If you want to have any kind of break at all, get over there so we can get started, including you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Representative Court. Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I have talked to the Assistant Minority Leader and the Majority Leader, and I would request to be excused on Monday. I actually need to stay home and see if my lost medications have come in.
Check the mail, Representative Quorum. Representative Quorum will be excused as requested. Representative Tyler.
Can I suggest, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, that Representative Quorum could probably be excused all next week if he has to wander around so far looking for his meds?
Is there any real announcements or introductions for the body? Rather than the dueling pianos down here. Oh, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I forgot, on the calendar, it shows the Joint Budget Committee meeting upon adjournment and at 1:30. We are not meeting at either time. So just wanted to make sure that you weren't missing any action because there is no action today. Thank you.
Is there further announcements or introductions? Seeing none, Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move the House stand in recess until later today at 1:30 p.m.
Seeing no objection, the House will still stand in recess until later today at 1:30 p.m.